Hello, I'm Samuel Pollen. I'm the author of a book called The Year I Didn't Eat, which is out with Zuntold in the UK and with Yellow Jacket in the US. I've been recording a few readings and a few other bits of kind of content around the book to keep people busy while they are all locked down at home and beyond. And this is one of those readings. I've recorded some that kind of deal with earlier bits of the book, so you might want to listen to those first if you have a desire to get the full experience. But yeah, so today I'm going to read a little bit from towards the end of the book, which is where Max, the main character, so I should tell you a bit about the main character. Max is 14, he has anorexia, and the book follows like a year of his life as he is struggling with his eating disorder and kind of trying to recover from his eating disorder, and also just dealing with all of the things that are happening to him as a 14-year-old. So, you know, people at girls at school, and going through puberty, and dealing with his family, and just all of the things that are affecting his life. So I tried to kind of set it in this general context of someone's life, because I think that's a really important thing about eating disorder, is when you watch one on TV, it's really focused in on the eating disorder, and it is all about the drama of that experience. But actually lots of people are living through things like this and also trying to get on with their everyday lives, and they have to go to school, and they have to go to work, and they have to, you know, go to the cinema with friends and look after kids, and kind of all different things depending on their phase of life and their own personal experience. But all of that stuff, you know, happens against the backdrop of an eating disorder, and that can make all kinds of things tricky. Anyway, that was a sort of digression. So this reading is a piece towards the end of the book where Max is trying to understand why he developed an eating disorder. Now, like, the overall message of the book, which hopefully comes through if you read the whole book, is that, you know, eating disorders are no one's fault, and they are, you know, they are random, well, not quite random, because there are genetic predispositions and kind of things that trigger them, but no one makes them happen. You cannot predict if they are going to happen. It is not your fault if it happens to you. It is not your fault if it happens to your child. It is not your fault if it happens to your sibling, and so on. But obviously when you're living through something like this, you try and understand it, and you try and go, well, why me and not someone else? Why? What could I have done differently to avoid having an eating disorder? How would my life be different if I didn't have an eating disorder? And those, with any kind of mental health problem, those thoughts kind of should be really hard, because you kind of like, if I could just not have this thing going on, I could climb mountains and you know, graduate top of my class and you know, become a billionaire and all of the things that you might want to do in your life. So yeah, so this is a bit where Max is kind of going through that thought process, trying to show what that thought process feels like. I just wanted to clarify before I read this that all of the reasons he comes up with are wrong, or at least at best like a very small part of a wider picture, because this is a thing that just happens to someone and that they have to go through and have to deal with, and it's no one's fault, and sadly it happens to, you know, thousands and thousands of people every year. Okay. Chapter 22. I've started making a list of all the reasons why. Everything I can think of that could have nudged me in Anna's direction. It's not like I think it's going to fix me. I'm starting to doubt that anything can fix me. But ever since Italy, I've had this feeling like, maybe if I understand better, I can learn how to live with this. We can all learn how to live with Anna. I haven't written any of it down. From now on, stuff like this stays in my head. But that's okay. It turns out Anna's made me pretty good at remembering stuff. Finally, I get to use one of her weapons against me. Reason 1. We're kind of health conscious as a family. For example, I have never knowingly eaten a meal that didn't contain at least one vegetable. Most people would consider this a good thing, but I reckon you can take it too far. Reason 2. Food is never just food in my house. There's always a conversation. For instance, did you know that almost all bananas are clones, and that in the 1920s we used to have a tastier kind of banana, but it got wiped out by a fungus? Probably not, right? But I did, because Dad talks about this stuff like 24/7. I guess how you'd put it is, we always put a lot of focus on food. I've been trained to think about where it comes from, who made it, what they got paid. Again, this should be a good thing. Reason 3. As well as being health conscious, we're also pretty particular, especially Dad. Sure, he never gets mad, but that's partly because everything in our house is exactly the way he wants it to be. All of our books are alphabetized. Our herbs and spices are alphabetized, for crying out loud. Mum's a bit like this too, and I think it's rubbed off on me, however much I didn't want it to. When I see something slightly out of place, I get this prickly feeling in my neck. I can't stop thinking about it until I've put it right. Robin is definitely not like this, by the way. When he was at home, his bedroom looked like it had been raided by the FBI. I can't even imagine what it's like now that he doesn't have Mum nagging at him all the time. Lindsay told me once that anorexia can be related to OCD. People who have one often have the other. I don't have OCD, but I maybe have some of the same traits. Like, when I was little, I always used to wash my hands in this particular way. I'd rub the soap exactly 4 times across each hand. First the back, then the palm. If I got it wrong, I'd have to start over. I kind of grew out of it, or maybe I didn't. Maybe it just grew into something else. Reason 4. This isn't a new one, but the money/waste thing. For a family who has never been poor, we're totally neurotic about money. And the absolute worst thing that can happen in our house is if we let some food go bad and have to throw it away. For me, the money part only really kicked in on that first trip to Italy. But I'd probably sucked it up by osmosis before then. Now it's the main thing I worry about, when I'm not thinking about food, of course. Reason 5. My parents want me to be an overachiever. Or to put it another way, they want me to turn out different from Robin. Don't get me wrong, they've never told me this. They never would, but it's true. There was this one evening last year, right before I got ill. I overheard them. Dad was telling Mum about how much I love zoology, which I guess is true, which made me feel like a total dweeb. Anyway, Mum was like, "Do you think we have a science genius on our hands?" Dad replied, "It would be a nice change from a creative genius," and they both started laughing. This was before Robin got his apprenticeship, when he was just a guy who made the odd birdhouse but didn't really know what to do with his life. They wanted me to be the stable, sensible, high-flying one, the one who alphabetizes his herbs and spices, the one who's always in control. In which case, this year must have been the biggest letdown in history. So there you have it. 5 reasons why I turned out the way I did, maybe. Do they add up to anorexia? Do they explain why Anna decided to climb into my head? You wouldn't think so, right? Maybe there's some extra element I'm forgetting, some broken wiring in my brain I don't know about. What I do know is, I don't see any of these things changing. I'm not sure I even want them to change. If finding out a way to live with Anna means changing who I am, what am I supposed to do? So, if you are living with an eating disorder, I think that's a really big thing that you go through, and that's really hard kind of for people to get their heads around, is that it's a lens that you see everything through. It affects everything. It affects every thought process, and you have this kind of battle with yourself, because you say, well, you know, is that me, or is that the eating disorder? And it doesn't feel like a different thing. It feels like you. But if that's part of you, then is there a way you can recover? And are you a different person if you recover? And all that kind of stuff. It's all, you know, whenever you're living with a kind of mental health problem, it runs through everything, and that can be a really hard thing to deal with, because you can't, you know, there's this idea that you can just kind of put that in a box. And I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about eating disorders, when they maybe don't know that much about eating disorder, it's like, well, why, you know, can't they just accept that they have this problem with eating, but just kind of get on with it and sit down and eat a meal and kind of then move on, and they don't have to like it. But it's not, it's a much more holistic thing than that. And that fear and worry of like, why am I wired this way, is I think something that is hopefully relatable to lots of people who've been through mental health problems, which is why I wrote the book in the first place. So, The Year I Didn't Eat, it's out with Untold in the UK, it's out with Yellow Jacket in the US. Just a general kind of content warning, this is obviously a book that deals with the reality of living with an eating disorder. It can, I think people have told me it's very useful to them when they've been going through an eating disorder, or when they've known people who are going through an eating disorder, but you may also find it triggering, so I would encourage you to talk to people about that and find out a bit more, maybe talk to your doctor about it if you're in treatment, about whether that is a good idea. But as I say, hopefully it is helpful to some people. So that's the video for today. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to do the next one of these. I'm probably not for a while. The goal was to kind of put out some nice content that kind of kept people entertained while we were all locked down, and hopefully that whole thing is changing a bit, fingers crossed. I don't know exactly when this is going up, but anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I am Samuel Pollen. You can find out more about me at samuelpollen.com if you like. Take care.